a researcher of the MIT. Of this panel, we will have Madame Esther Kurt Laroche, who is the director of the UNESCO Office to Costa Rica and representative of UNESCO for Costa Rica, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama. For them, I ask you to please give them a round of applause. Good afternoon to everyone.
We are back with a new panel, which is going to be very interesting. We have with us two great experts on artificial intelligence, which is our main topic today. And each of them are going to give us first a presentation. The first presentation will be by Dante Barone, and it will be about artificial intelligence in general. And then we're going to have a presentation about deep fakes. And after that, we will open up the discussion, and I will take questions as well from all of you, so you can use the WhatsApp number to send me your questions. So perhaps without further ado, I will give the floor to Mr. Dante Barone of the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil.
Can I begin my presentation? Yes. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank, first of all, Mrs. Esther Laroche for the invitation, and also Mr. Jamie Knight. And I think this is very important in the times that we are living now, because xenophobia is rising, unfortunately, and panels like this one are very important. Okay. I'll talk in English. Then you'll see here in my presentation very briefly, and after all, also in the panel, in the questions, how artificial intelligence can be used not only for disseminating fake news and disinformation campaigns, but also how to mitigate them. First of all, also, it would be interesting to give one definition of artificial intelligence. Of course, there are many possible definitions, but in some sense, we can say that the capacity that the computers, that you put on computers in order to mimic our behavior, the behavior of intelligent beings. This can lead also to machines that can control systems as robots. But in all these aspects of computers or robots that have intelligent behavior, this must be assimilated to the human behavior. And one question important also is fundamental for artificial intelligence, was made even by its founder, the brilliant scientist Alan Turing, who has faced many problems regarding his sexual orientation in England many years ago, is if the machines can think or not. When the machines can think, we can take the perspective of the strong AI, where the machines can be even more intelligent than we are. And we have also the other perspective, which is called the weak AI, when we use systems that are intelligent, that they show intelligent behaviors, but we are not looking for machines that can think for themselves. And when we talk about artificial intelligence, since I said that we try to put on the systems some capacities that are linked to our behavior, we are talking about the reasoning, how we can do some activities, to plan some activities regarding logic and sensible attitudes. How can you generalize things? For instance, if you have a driverless car, if you pass in front of a dog, you must learn that another animal who is moving, a cat or other dogs, the car must stop in order not to crush them. we have to have the capacity to learn, for sure. It's crucial for mankind and also for many animals. We have to do calculations, and of course it's very important also to discover the meanings in many different situations. Sometimes it's difficult in some sense to say what's AI, but it's simpler in some sense to say what's not AI. For instance, if you are looking for a robot that is playing one instrument, but this robot, for instance, is just programmed to play that specific instrument. Is it possible for it to play piano? No, because it was not programmed for that. In reality, if he's playing this instrument, he was just programmed to do it. It's not intelligent. This is not an intelligent behavior. But sometimes you think that, oh, this is very intelligent. He plays an instrument. Another thing is the figure at the right. We can have the fabrication of automobiles, of even robots can be made through robots. But if a robot is programmed for doing welding, it's not good for doing painting. Then they are doing very specific things. These robots, we cannot say that they are intelligent. One thing that's very important regarding AI is what is being said by science fiction. And science fiction is very important because, for instance, even the invention of the mobile phone was in some sense inspired by a science fiction movie or by Star Trek, where one character of Star Trek was using some kind of a mobile device of communication. And this is very important. But in some sense, there are many films, for as example Terminator, where there are some aliens that would fight against mankind, and how these machines would be transformed in some sense in evil machines. What are their intentions? In some sense, for the American people, many of the understanding that they have about robots is regarded to science fiction, and this kind of very negative science fiction, where the machines are evil. But and this is very important regarding the theme of the conference here, xenophobia. It's very cultural, because if you think not all people in all other places in the world would take the same perspective about robots. For instance, in Japan, they have a very positive perspective regarding the machines, because they think that every human being, or even the machines, they have a spirit, and having a spirit, they could be good. We have also other films like Transformers. One very foundational science fiction film was 2001: A Space Odyssey, where some astronauts had the mission to discover the origins of mankind, but they were interacting with a very intelligent robot, the HAL, and in a part of the film, how the astronauts wanted to turn off the robot, but HAL said, no, I won't be turned off. This is the problem of have conscience. In my opinion, really to consider a machine to be intelligent, really intelligent, I think that it must have some kind of consciousness. We have two main techniques regarding artificial intelligence. The first one is they call the symbolic. It was the first approach for artificial intelligence. It has begun in the 50th decade. It involved the development of expert systems, and it was developing in the very beginning of the Cold War. And it was very important for machines to translate. And this was one of the main big approaches even for the United States and for Russia and Soviet Union at that period, how to develop some conversational systems, how to translate what, for instance, some Russian spy could be talking at a certain moment. Another approach is, one problem of the symbolic approach was that were trying to mimic the knowledge of the experts without considering any error. And for learning, it's very important to consider errors. This was their mistake in some sense, very simply speaking. The other approach is the connectionist one. It's also called the subsymbolic one, where we have another perspective. We'll try to replicate in some sense, we'll be inspired by how our brain works, using networks of neurons. And more recently, this model is taking a very important role among the other perspectives in artificial intelligence, because you are being capable of doing some applications regarding voice recognition, speech recognition, and images. We are being very capable of recognizing many images. But this faces also a problem, because in many data sets that we use for images recognition, sometimes they have some bias. They don't represent very well some underrepresented populational groups. And how the theme of this panel, of this conference in some sense, how the artificial intelligence can be dealt with disinformation. What are the possible relationships? Why artificial intelligence is so dangerous for disinformation? Because in reality, since artificial intelligence can use large amounts of data, the so-called big data. We have very specific techniques for analyzing this big data analytics. And then we can target specific publics and direct propaganda to those specific publics, being very, very specific. For instance, we have some examples of, and this has been used spreadly during the Brexit, during the presidential elections in the United States in 2016, and even in the Brazilian elections in 2018. For instance, the first picture says the Hillary Clinton, when she was candidate to be president in 2016, saying that she had the Kuru disease, which is a very rare disease, which affects very much the brain of people, and which was found in New Guinea among people who had some kind of funeral rituals and who ate the brain of the people who are dead. But of course this is completely false, and this was meant as true by many of Trump's followers. Here, my colleague will talk about fake news, but just one brief preview about it. We are showing the deputy Nancy Pelosi, the head of the Speaker of the House of Representatives of the United States, and in this deep fake is showing that she was drunk, speaking drunk. This was completely fake also. Then we can of course, and this can be used and was used, is being used against migrants, refugees, and things like that, and people like that. We have many applications of AI. AI is present everywhere. If you are talking with someone using groups of Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Google, for sure. Of course, the links that you are seeing when you Google something on Google, there are some artificial intelligence embedded in the algorithms. For drones, for image recognition, it's very important, and even for driverless cars. Of course, one important thing also is regarding the regulation of this. Sometimes we have the technology, but what happens if this car will crash someone? Who is responsible? Since there was no driver, or it was the driver who was not seeing what would happen, or the engineer, or the fabricants, who are the responsibles? And this is a very important theme, the accountability in artificial intelligence systems. And of course, it can be very dangerous for the diffusion of disinformation. As I said, Cambridge Analytica, one firm that was an English company, has worked very much both on Brexit, the same people, both on Brexit and both in Trump's election. And it's very important to say also regarding xenophobia, that Microsoft has done one experiment through creating a Twitter character. It was called Thai, and it would like to interact with other persons in through tweets, but just in 24 hours, less than 24 hours, it became, it or he or she became completely racist, and it was shut down because it was very dangerous to continue to have this behavior in the network. One thing that's very important, how then the fake news can be used and can be spread using artificial networks. Then we can, for instance, I have some problems. Just a sec. Yes, we can, for instance, text create some text that shows to specific target audiences, and then we can use the technology to create these texts. Of course, like Thai that is looking around all the things that are available to her, this text can target some specific parts of text and create other texts which could be very useful for the purpose of who is sending this. Then we will generate a deep learning model, and then using this fake news, we can go and target specific groups on WhatsApp, for instance. How can we deal also with artificial intelligence to fight against or to mitigate false deepfake or fake news? As it was mentioned this morning, there are many sites that are fact-checking. This inspection, of course, the machines can help this, but there are people sometimes, the majority of times, that will check this news. Then we have the supposed fake news, and then we can also look for the source of the reputation checking. If this reputation is bad, we can eliminate the source of fake news. One thing that's very important, why so many people are so aware now, are so propensious to divulgate fake news. This is related to the so-called Dunning-Kruger effect. What does it mean? We have in one X the confidence, and in the other X the experience or the competence of the subjects on one specific subject. Initially, people who don't know anything about one specific subject, they will receive this fake news, and they say, no, if it comes from one friend of mine or one known people of mine, no, this might be true. Then I will divulgate this. And sometimes this happens even more. There was a research on that after the American election 2016. The electors of Trump were more propensious to divulgate fake news. And when you get more knowledge about one specific subject, you are less likely to divulgate fake news. But when you have more knowledge, you know more what you are doing. In some sense, you are more confident about this, and you can divulgate information. Here we have some techniques that are used by artificial intelligence to disseminate propaganda and disinformation. Of course, since we use social media and the algorithms are very, very smart, very intelligent in some sense, they can take information about our behaviors. And also, they can. This is very effective when we go home, for instance, and we are looking for streaming videos through Amazon or through Netflix, using Netflix. The recommendation systems know, in some sense, us very well. In some sense, to offer us what would be more likely for us to be seen. Then we can also use natural language processing technologies to orient our sentiments, to analyze our sentiments, and then they will be more effective in targeting propaganda. And also they are capable of generating deep fakes, because deep fakes in some sense is possible since we got many developments in image processing, in speech processing. in order that it seems to be exactly one true video, but in reality is fake. We can have also some tools to mitigate using AI technologies. We can verify automatically the detection of false news in some sense. We can verify if there are some troll bots. Troll is a person or a bot who tries to create discord in communities. And of course, these trolls normally are very dangerous. And also the verification of the authenticity of one person or one site. And we have the possibility of using many fact checkers. Here, we have also, I'll show briefly, one research that we are doing between my university, Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, with the Technical University of Berlin, a former student of mine who is there. And we are developing this portal for, if you Google, if you put in the browser some specific thing that you are looking, if it's true or false, then many links regarding those words will come, and the origin of the fact checker links will be viewed as true or false, or even they don't with some kind of probability to be false or true. And which are the possible relationships of artificial intelligence and xenophobia? Well, since many of the technologies regarding which made artificial intelligence so powerful are related to the data sets that we use. But normally, these big companies, they are located in the United States or in Europe for those markets which are very big ones. But for instance, there are many data sets that they don't represent very much people, colored people, Latino people, and this can be very dangerous in some recognition systems when this kind, where those peoples were not well represented. And we have many surveillance systems, as Anduril is a defense company in the United States, and we have already many examples that some of these systems, they create problems for black people. Black people, when these systems are used by the police in the United States, for instance, there are many examples. Black people, in some sense, they are they say that they could be probable committing some crimes. What's not true? Now I reach some conclusions. AI is very strong and it produces impacts very profound on society. In some sense, democracies are threatened by technology. This is very sad to say, because in some sense, technology could be helpful for democracy, but we are seeing exactly the opposite in some sense. The Brexit was a very good example of that. Of course, the personal motivations could serve as an to incentivize how some sensationalist contents could be spread. It's very important to talk about the role of international organizations as United Nations, as of course UNESCO, UNHCR, because they are doing many things regarding to couple technology with a better life. Even the United Nations, the Secretary General Antonio Guterres has created a team. A colleague of mine university has participated. This team was led by Melissa Gates and by Jack Ma from Alibaba company, the billionaire from China. And they are even looking for the possibility of changing the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights in order to put at the light of the digital technologies society that we are living now. There are many changes that technology is changing our lives, and this should be included even in the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights. And of course, there are many threats regarding the utilization of artificial intelligence, even the automatization of weapons is very dangerous. Even if you don't know if the machine has a conscience, and which will be the standards for it to shoot, to kill lives. This is very dangerous. But I think that technology should be considered also very good for developing things and for mitigating disinformation campaigns. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that informative presentation. I think we all have a lot of questions now, and I encourage all of you to send me your questions by WhatsApp. We will take them after the second presentation. But if I may, before we pass on to the second topic, how do you see the future for us in terms of the influence of artificial intelligence on our lives? You've mentioned that we are very much inspired in our minds by science fiction movies, but what do you think realistically the impact will be of artificial intelligence on our daily lives?
Yes. Yes, the impacts of artificial intelligence will be tremendous. Even you are living now the era of Internet of Things, where every device at home or many devices at home could be automatized using our mobile phones. I think that artificial intelligence can create very good things for us, for our lives, but we must be very conscious about the problems that it can arise also. Then I think that some kind of the organizations, governments should be aware of the risks also and create some mechanisms to create artificial intelligence systems which could be explainable. The explainability, accountability of artificial intelligence systems are very important things to consider. Then I think that it could be very beneficial for society, but we must be aware of the risks, and also it's very important when you develop some technological artifacts, for instance, to have interdisciplinary teams. We have to have people from social sciences, from ethics, philosophers, people from education to be in the teams, and also the teams which develop artificial intelligence must be more diverse, both regarding women and also LGBT population.
Thank you very much. UNESCO is leading discussions at the global level about the ethics of artificial intelligence, and many sectors are involved in those discussions. But perhaps as a follow-up of what you just said, here we have representatives from many different sectors, from government, United Nations, NGOs, civil society, private sector. What do you think we can do collectively to make sure that the development of AI is really used for good, for the benefit of humanity and for sustainable development?
Yes, it's a very important but very difficult question in some sense. I think that, as you mentioned, many different stakeholders and players of those systems, I think that they should constitute associations or specific initiatives, and I think that the United Nations, as the leading organization for all other, considering all other organizations, should lead this movement. And I think that this morning there was one representative of one very important company as Facebook. I think that those big players should be on those tables also. But of course, there are some problems, because sometimes the one thing is what is publicly said, but in other sense, sometimes these big companies, they receive even big contracts of, for developing arms and things like that. Then I think that the United Nations should play a very important role in the association, the different countries, but putting the companies together.
Thank you very much. I would like to move on to the second presentation by Mr. Omar Castillo-Reyes. He's from MIT in the US, and he's going to explain to us a little bit more about deep fakes. It's a term that we hear a lot, and that perhaps we don't know a lot about. So perhaps you can explain to us what is this all about and what impact is this having?
Sure. So I prepare my slides in Spanish. So I'll give my presentation in Spanish, and then we can go back to English, so we can discuss on that. Pero bueno, me gustaría mucho también hablar español.
Also, I would like to speak in Spanish because Spanish speakers? Okay. And almost everyone is Spanish speaker. So thank you very much for this invitation, there. And Jamil also, who's been in touch with me. And it's part of the General Council of the UN, and over lunch we were talking about artificial intelligence and how it's affecting mankind. And also we had a journalist on the table, and he was telling us that the journalists are being replaced by machines that write their articles. So there are many things that both the UN and UNESCO have to look into more regulation for them. But right now we have to focus a little bit about these deep fakes. Let me just start by giving you a few examples, and then we can talk about what can we do about them. Well, my name is Omar Costilla. I'm originally from Mexico. I grew up in Toluca. I'm right now in MIT doing a postdoctorate. I had a doctorate in England, in Manchester, and I'm here just to give you a little more information in these areas that sometimes are very broad, and I hope my presentation is able to give you a little better understanding of what's going on, and especially on the situation of deep fakes, which is a very sensitive matter. So, first of all, why does that we say deep fake? Because deep fake is a combination of deep learning and fake. And deep learning is an artificial intelligence technique that has taken quite an interest in the past few years, and it's a new technique that is bringing very positive results and is working very well. And fake because, of course, it's counterfeited data, right? And so my first question to all of you is the picture that you see there. You have to tell me which one is real, which one is fake. Who says the left is fake? Sorry, the left is real. The left is real? Who thinks the left is the fake one? Sorry. Okay, no, wait. Let me do it again. Who thinks that the left is the original? Left the original? Who thinks that the right is the original? Okay. Okay, well, deep fake is the one on the right. Okay, so this is the sort of problem that we have to deal with on the day-to-day activities to determine if this is real or fake. And here, once again, out of all the faces you see there, how many of them do you think are real people, and how many of them are fake productions? How many of you say more than half? More than half? Less than half? All of them? Who thinks that all of them are real people? Okay. So, yes, all of the pictures there are fake people. These are not celebrities or anything. These are just faces created by an artificial intelligence algorithm. And the links you see there at the bottom where it says dataset, well, that's basically a database of real celebrities, and they start going into an algorithm that creates alterations on those faces to create these fake celebrities. So these are the categories. The four main categories are the synthetic at the top left, yes, which basically just changes a little bit of where the person is looking at, or the facial expression. You know, the pictures on the top are the real ones, and at the bottom ones are the fakes. You see that they change a little bit the face expression, and everything that is on the red line is fake, and green is the real. So you see that we can change some of the characteristics, yeah, such as have more hair, or maybe add on glasses, etc. So this is sort of what in artificial intelligence is doing to create this deepfake. They also are able to change the face a little bit. Like for example, on the bottom left, you can see how the body is what the body remains, but the face changes, and we have a different expression. So here you can see how far this technology is going now, and to understand what are some of the possible implications and why we need to discuss them and know how we can mitigate them. Now, before we go into more of the effects, because this is also, I would like to explain to you that this technology is it came out of the deep learning, right? This is what machines are learning to work. That's what you see on your right. It's machine learning through deep neural networks. All this processing is very complex. An engineer doesn't really understand what's happening within these systems, but since we are engineers, we see the way it works and not the way it's done. But after all the investigation, what we try to do is to make sure that they work the way we need them to work, because right now we're not able to completely explain how the connections are done in terms of the rules and what was the system. This an unknown still, but we are evolving, yes, because on the left you can see that a linear regression, which is what used before and still been used by many people to do some research. You can still see, if you don't know too much about engineering and artificial intelligence, you can see that these are systems that are very different, right? The image on the left looks kind of simple, and the right looks a lot more complex, right? That's sort of what's happening with the systems today. And so this deep learning and the systems come from networks, and networks that are called antagonistic generative networks. And what you see there is a series of steps of how do we train these systems. It's very simple. I could spend an hour on how this intelligence works, but just a very generic overview of how it works. We start from the top and to the bottom. There are two systems. They are trying to train a system, and the right side is the real part shown to the system, and the left is the fake. Another system is also training, such as a competition, right, between the real and fake. And as we train, we were able to go down the system and see the evolution on how the image that was generated starts on the blue frame. You see a very weird circle, then it looks like a face below, and then it looks very similar. And yeah, that's the procedure that we start with to train these systems. And going back to the pictures that I was showing you before, you were able to see that the fake celebrities look very similar to a real faces, and so that's why the system starts to compete and looking for ways to learn what are the patterns that represent, in this case, a bill or a face. And this is sort of called a revolution. This system was invented in 2014, right? I think 2014, when the first scientific paper on how the system works. It's very new, and people are using it for many things. And then we have the real image, the generator. Then we start taking examples, and then we have a discriminator in between, and then we have the training of the real discriminator, and then the training of the generator, and the object in function. That's how the network operates. So you can see for both the generator and the discriminator. So it's sort of like a competition between these two neural networks, and it's a very interesting process. And of course, I'm not going to go into details because it will take me a long time. But I recommend you read about it because it's interesting to know how this system works. Now, going a little bit on the complications, someone from Facebook was speaking about what they're doing on Facebook, and a real case that happened in Facebook was that they were using, generated images or deepfake images, on profiles, and this profile said that I wanna support Trump, and this profile started massively as saying I support Trump. But what the engineers did to detect was that in those yellow frames you see in the images, you can see certain details that don't really match with the picture. And if you remember the steps that the neural network takes to learn, well, one of those steps wasn't really complete, right? The image, really looks like the original. So you see that those small changes on the glasses of the person, the hair, or the jawline for that woman, there were changes there, and that's what the engineers are basing on to erase those profiles. And this is in real life, right? This is not a lab exercise. This is a campaign that was done, and it's part of the link that I include there. But these are situations that are developing in the real world, and we need to have one way or another to be able to regulate and make sure that this is not really affecting the life of everyday people. But another one that is a little more harsh, and I was surprised when I saw this. There was some sort of engineer that decided an application where you could put a picture of any woman, any picture of a woman, dressed woman, and this deepfake system will show you what their body, naked body, will look like. So imagine how far this has been taken, right? Yeah, and this could affect us a lot, right? Remember, a family member that put their picture there and they replace it with the fake and naked picture, and they move that around. So we have to know how can we act with these systems, because this is just one example of the many things that can be done with these possibilities. And so we believe that the world should have some sort of actions through the UN, of course, so that we can have more and better regulation, so that it's closer to the real world, and it doesn't really have an impact on the women, on the life of women or people, because women being the most vulnerable in this situation. So another app with deepfakes or facial recognition is something that we see on airplanes now, right? Once when we're going to board on a plane or we go on to an airport, our face is being scanned constantly. And the truth is that there's no regulation right now for facial recognition, so all of the companies that are using it have the freedom to use them as whatever they want with those pictures. Those pictures can go to a database to generate whatever, and it's a sensitive situation. And where I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, it's already been called illegal all around Boston, and I think in San Francisco facial recognition is also illegal because of everything that can be done with your pictures and the way the systems can be used. So we're starting to see some regulation about it, but we still have to make sure that the airlines stop using this facial recognition until there's some sort of regulation for it. Now, but that comes to the question, how can we stop deepfakes? What can we do in today's industry? The industry already knows what's going on, how the systems are being created, and I think that more than just the industry, I think the universities as well also are aware of the disruptive potential that systems like this have. So there's a lot of investigation going on and many efforts to be able to stop these systems. One very clear is Sembler from Google, where you put a picture and they analyze it. If it's a fake picture, there's the link there on the presentation if you want to look into this assembler. And also there's a deepfake detection challenge, and which is, I think it's by Amazon. I don't know. I think it was Amazon. This challenge is basically gives you a data set, and they ask you, well, if these pictures are fake or not, or real, and the group that has the better accuracy or the group that has the highest score on detection wins a fund of $1 million. I don't know. So these competitions are also important, so the investigation can progress and these systems can be stopped. Now, I don't want to go too far. I don't want to go before mentioning positive side of deep learning, right? Because we might start thinking that everything is on the negative side. I wanted to show you some small examples of what these systems can do when they're used for positive results, because they can be both disruptive on the negative side, but also on the positive side. So there's this tool, AutoDraw. I have this GIF in which you show the pointer moving on screen. But if you go over there, for example, to autodraw.com, in AutoDraw, you start drawing whatever, I don't know, like a bicycle or whatever you want to do. The system actually starts recommending different faces and stuff. Like an emoji, right? When you get on WhatsApp and you get smileys, if you draw a face, it will show you it. AutoDraw.com, it actually just helps a lot when it comes to working. It will help you. There are a lot of positive things. A different thing is, for example, when creating, you can't create landscapes from a drawing like this. If you go to NVIDIA page, go on, we'll do just one drawing right there, and then you can do mountains, you can do landscape, you can actually do this with your cursor, and the image will put that into an image, and that is just impressive. That based on just a few drawings, I would actually recommend you a realistic image. Another good application is you can actually increase resolution of pages or resolution. If you have a movie film from the 50s, for example, the resolution is kind of small, so if you really want to take a look or watch this film in these big screens, now we can use this technology so that based on that little resolution you can do the upscaling a much better resolution, much bigger. So this is used of generative networks, and that can be applied to this and also. If you remember this of different negative cases and other good things that can be used. So we need both regulations and innovation. These are things that are both necessary. The policymakers and all this, the systems are changing. Tomorrow it could be something else, and all of these people have to work alongside the researchers to find out what we can do, because there's no other possible way. The world, what somebody says, is changing and it's moving fast, really fast. So we must be there if we actually need to uphold the rights of the people. And then if we talk a little bit about ethics, these points come here from the Turin Institute in the UK. I am not the author of this paper. They did this in their webpage, and I believe they're very, very important points when it comes to ethics. We have, for example, upholding the dignity of people individually to protect priorities of the social values such as justice and public interest, connecting others in a sincere way, open and inclusive. And then we could also include equity, for example, or equality, all of these non-discrimination issues, that all data must be handled in an egalitarian manner. For example, bias, whatever you give to a system, whatever you feed into a system is the output. If you go into, I don't know, let's work, you work for a bank, and the bank asks you, listen, I want to know if this person can get credit or not, depending on how the system was trained. If you see all of the data, if there is a bias for, let's say, for example, ethnic for an ethnic group or for a religious or for a social economic status, this is going to be really affected. This type of things can really, we need to start thinking about all of this stuff, how to make the best use of AI systems, and accountability is a very, very important. Deep learning are very hard to interpret today. So these are some of the challenges we have. How we can actually provide specific explanations based on this deep learning. Otherwise, there could be more problems. And to foster transparency, for example, from the moment you create or design a program until the moment it is applied. So we just need to actually have regulation and in many other things, and hopefully this will provide a little bit more support in order to start working this type of census. And I have been working a little bit in the benefit of Latin American society, and that paper over here, this is something that I wrote for The Edge, which is the newspaper for, it's moving Latin American forward, how to accelerate the adoption of artificial intelligence, how to do it. And this is just pretty much the main key points. We need to have digital infrastructure and modernize quickly. Latin America need to invest a lot in actually training their workers to develop and use AI. There are very good engineers that are educated in these countries, and they move to different countries. There must be an ethical framework, at least regionally, on artificial intelligence, because you can see what we can do with these systems. And there must be collaboration in the region, and then actually have engagement from the different sectors. About a month ago, January 21st and 22-23, I actually did this summit of artificial. Who knew about this summit in MIT? You got the videos. They're all Latin American Summit 2020 on MIT. If you want to know, this is so you can actually take a look at these videos. So thank you very much. This is my email and my information, just in case you want to contact me. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very informative and quite worrying, huh? We can already see that this phenomenon of deepfakes is having an impact on democracies. You mentioned the example of elections. Here in Central America, we've seen a real impact in terms of the safety of journalists and freedom of expression. We had a conference last year about the safety and security of women journalists, in which many women were actually mentioning that they have already been victims of deepfakes, where they appear in nude pictures or they appear in all kinds of videos, and that is used as a way to threaten them. And so they have auto-censorships, or they even just decide to drop out of their profession altogether. So it's already having a real impact. Now, one of the questions that I've received from several people in the audience is, how can we distinguish between what's real and what's not real? You mentioned some of these applications, websites, but in reality, most people, you receive a video by WhatsApp or you see something on the internet, and you just assume that it's real. And I think that's part of the problem, right? That we see it and you say, well, no, I saw the person, the person said it, and so it's real. So how can we, in practical terms, try to combat this phenomenon? How can we also, through education, teach young people how to distinguish between what's real and what's fake?
Well, I've been thinking about this problem, and technically speaking, it's very challenging to solve it, because what I explained, that the objective of the system, of a deepfake system, is to learn exactly the real image, right? So that's the objective of this AI. But in my opinion, the way we can solve this problem is to have something coming from the UN, maybe, like an organization or somebody that verifies everything. That it has to say, it has web pages or videos or everything that they can put some kind of digital signature saying that this is real and true. I feel that that's probably the easiest way we can do it, because otherwise, if we are waiting for the research to detect the videos, I think it will take forever. But if somebody takes the lead and says, we're going to verify everything that's on the internet, and we're going to provide a digital signature that this is real, I think that's probably the best way to move forward, in my opinion.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Another question that we've received is that AI is being developed in a context of inequalities, gender inequalities, racial inequalities you've mentioned. So is that reflected in the algorithms as well? And does that mean that AI and the consequences of it are also reinforcing these inequalities?
Yes, as I said, I think an AI system is not something magic, right? We think of AI as some kind of God. Well, some of us that we think is doing magic things, but not, no. So as I said before, an AI system learns from the data, right? So anything that's on the data, everything that the data captures will be represented in the system as well. So if the data has some negative inclinations for some part of society, then the resulting system will be the same. And there is a machine learning area that's called fairness in AI, fairness in machine learning. So we know that many data sets have contaminated data that's already, marginalizing even more people. So what this fairness in AI groups of machine learning, what they're doing is trying to, once you have the system, how we can make it equal, right? So it's another research area that has been very productive lately, but still I think that if the problem is in the data, we need to be careful with the data first before thinking on the models and looking into these research areas like fairness on how they can fix these problems.
I just received a follow-up question from someone in the audience who's saying, are you referring to something that would be like Big Brother of 1984's George Orwell, or how do you imagine this kind of system?
Which system, sorry, for the...
If you would have something regulating all of this, what would that look like?
I think that obviously we can have many types of systems, right? So I think one of the big ideas that some of the best laboratories in the world, for example, DeepMind and Google, well, people might know more Google. So all these big enterprises, what they're looking is for something called artificial general intelligence, which is AGI, right? And so that's their goal. So if you ask somebody from DeepMind, what's the goal of DeepMind? What's the goal of Google? So it's to build the system, but I personally think that's very hard to do, and I don't think we are going to reach that anytime soon. Because what this system is trying to do is what she said is, so suppose that I have a system that detects that this is a glass, and then I want the system to really tell me about this person, and the system will also let me know more about the place. So the system will do several things, right? So that's very challenging nowadays. And so for example, we have a system that solves Go, which is a very advanced system that solves chess, if you don't know what Go is. So it solves chess. It cannot solve anything else. For example, to be in a robotics laboratory, lifting something, that the system cannot do that. So it's a very challenging thing that it's still not solved. But I think that going back to the regulation, I think that there should be like a set of rules that should be very clear of what every system can and cannot do, right? And that has to be enforced in every country, in every sector of society. Just a set of rules, right? Like the rule should be not to marginalize people. The rule should be, and then if somebody does it, then there should be a penalty for that. I think it's very simple, but I don't know why it's still not happening anywhere, right? But anyway, I'm not a politician, so I really don't know what has to happen.
Yes, please.
Yes, I think that the role of international organizations is very important on that. For instance, the International Association of Electrical Engineers, which is very famous in the scientific milieu, IEEE, has also created a committee to create some rules to how to align the developed systems to ethically. how to do systems that could be ethically aligned since the beginning. And for this, as I said before, the teams should be interdisciplinary, and sometimes I think also that associations or organizations should provide some kind of regulations, and the system should have some kind of labels of accountability, of fairness, and that they are gender equal, and that they provide gender equality and other things. Perhaps we should also, the customers should enforce in some sense that the products that they are using have some kind of very good labels for, in the sense of artificial intelligence for good.
Thank you very much. And what could we do to bridge the divide between the academic community, the scientists like yourselves, and the policymakers, especially in this region in Latin America, where perhaps we have not yet spent that much time thinking about all of these consequences of artificial intelligence?
I think that one meeting like this one is very important in that direction. I think that the stakeholders, the government, the associations, the companies should be put together in order to create these roles that to do better things regarding the use of artificial intelligence. As I mentioned before, that commission that was created by the General Secretary of the United Nations, I think it was a very important move on that direction. Even Antonio Guterres is very aware about this. I think that this should continue, in some sense.
In my opinion, so as I said before, we organized a summit in January, and our objective was to bring people from all over the region, but also three sectors, right, that are very important: industry, government, and also academia, right? So I think, as you mentioned, it's important to have everyone involved in policymaking, these kind of things, issues, because nobody can know everything, right? For example, I just told you that I don't know about policymaking, right? Because my brain cannot do everything, right? I cannot know everything about everything, right? So I think that's the reason why we need to complement each other. So government people know how to build laws, and we know how to build systems like this, and then we sit together and we spend some hours trying to understand each other. I think that will be the way forward to try to solve these big problems that we have nowadays in these systems.
Another question is for developing countries, like many countries here in the region. Should governments be investing in developing artificial intelligence?
Yes, for sure. I can give also one example. In Brazil, many years ago, they have some kind of calls regarding different, it should be some different state institutions from different states should be present, and even smaller centers, emergent centers should be present too. I think that we could try to do some kind of, the organization of the American states, for instance. I don't know how many funds do they have, but perhaps they could have some kind of partnerships with companies, and they could launch some kind of special calls regarding the participation of different parties, or people from industry, from academia, and from different countries even, some more developed ones with some more underdeveloped ones. And, for instance, Europe, the European Union, does it a lot. With projects with the participation of many countries, and it's very important to have some institutions that are not so developed.
I have two more questions here, and if other people still want to ask things that haven't been addressed, please do send me your questions by WhatsApp. One question is, what is open data? How can we access this data? And how can it help small developing countries develop AI-related technologies?
Well, I think that, well, that's a very good question. I think, so actually what I'm doing right now is trying to, institutions like MIT to put more attention in Latin America, right? So if you go to MIT, you know, we have research going on and everything, right? But you will not see research happening in Latin America, right? So why? I mean, it's still data, right? It's still research you can do about people here. So the main problem that we have, and that the reason why MIT doesn't do much research here, is because we don't have data. is what you said. So what's open data? But before open data, we need to have data, right? Because we need to build the infrastructure, and if you Google for something that you want to solve in a research question, probably the US has the most data on anything you want to research for, right? So so that's the reason why everybody does research in the US and Canada and Europe, because those are open data societies, data-enabled societies, right? So that's the first step we need to take here in order for us to take advantage of AI, but also don't take this very straightforward, because, having data online also puts, your data on the cloud, which is very insecure. So we need also systems that, securely guard all these very private information, maybe medical records, justice records, and then after that we can select which of those chunks of data, government data, we can, make it open and for people to take advantage of. So open data is, you have some non-sensitive data that research groups or people can use around the world to do research or to use it to solve a problem or to, do a project. So I think the initiatives that I've seen here are called open datos. Datos abiertos. Who knows about datos abiertos? All right, yeah. So I think datos abiertos is one of the few initiatives I've seen in Latin America on AI, and I actually want to talk with the people that are leading that, because I haven't found who is doing this. So if you know who, please let me know. But so we need more initiatives like that. But before that, we need to enable the society have more data on the cloud that's secure.
Thank you very much. I haven't received any more questions, so if you don't mind, I would like to end with a question of myself. You've both talked about how existing inequalities can be reflected in the algorithms behind artificial intelligence, how this can amplify issues like xenophobia, etc., sexism, any kind of other discrimination. In addition to that, we know that when we search something on the internet, the results we get are already filtered based on our profiles. So how do we avoid a situation in which we become somehow more and more boxed into our own predefined ideas? If I already have a certain way of thinking about migrants, then all I'm going to get is some information that's going to reinforce that idea. How are we going to get out of that box? How do we somehow get out of this filter that has already been created by these machines and that put us in a certain box, and that everything that we receive is basically tailored to that? Do you have any ideas?
Can I begin?
Yes.
Yes. I think that the representative of the United Nations talked this morning is exactly what I think. It's very important to look for a critical education. Of course, in some sense, your question is for us, for adults in general, but even for adults, of course, we must think about some kind of critical education. Nowadays, just for giving an example, in Brazil, you are facing a very big problem, because one of our most famous scientists as an educator, Paulo Freire, he became an enemy of the government. And this, why? Because he learns how to be critical, how to learn critically, and this is very important. Then I think that we should emphasize the learning for literacy, for journalism literacy also, and how these contents could be passed to the population. And of course, we should be more conscious about what you really said. We are becoming very narrowed about the information that comes to us, and we should try to open our minds, but trying to see other mechanisms, or even to looking for other journals and using the technologies of the Google Translator, for instance, but looking for other sources. And if you get used of using fact-checking websites, this would be important already in this direction.
Well, I think my opinion here is, first of all, I think that all the nationalism and all the populism that we've seen grown worldwide is because of that, because the search engines and everything online is building a very personalized version of ourselves, right? When we know that that's not true, that's not the word, right? But we are, we are confined to that box that you said, right? Like that's everything we see. So first of all, I think that, well, in my case, so I grew up in Mexico, right? So everything I saw was Mexico, right? So then I decided to leave Mexico and then go around the world and do different things, and that opens your mind, right? Just exploring outside what it is, because sometimes you hear something about a judgment about something, and then we assume that that's correct, right? But what if it's not correct, right? Why if you need to have those questions, right? Like, you don't need to assume that everything you see is correct, and you explore something else. For example, just this democracy or socialism things. So you might have your opinions about democracy, you might have your opinions about socialism, but if you like either of the two, have you tried to explore the other thing? Have you learned much about the other thing? So if you hate socialism, have you learned about that, how people live, how it works? So those kind of things, right? Like try to understand, even if we don't like it, try to understand why other people like it, right? So just be open, because these systems, I don't think these systems they're going to change, because they're following money, right? So all this personalizes in order to understand you and to show you ads about, clothes, about football, about things that you like, so they can sell it, right? So that's not going to change. It has to change within yourself and try to explore new things. At least that's the way I see it.
Thank you very much. I think that reinforces also the point that was made in the previous panel about critical thinking and the importance of that. I just received 2 last questions, and since we have 5 more minutes, I'll take them quickly. One is, what should newsrooms do about deep fakes? Do they also have a role in informing the general public?
Sorry, say it again.
Newsrooms, like journalists, what should they do about deep fakes?
You mean to combat news that are fake? Or news groups?
Periodistas,
¿Qué tienen que hacer?
¿Qué tendrían que hacer con los deepfakes? ¿Deberían informar al público? ¿Qué deberían hacer?
Yes, so what can, journalists do about it? So, for example, the news agency that is with MIT is called MIT Tech Review. Who reads MIT Tech Review? Is anybody here reading that? So you should read that magazine, because what they do is, I feel that they are the first source of information in terms of, ethics, something that went wrong. Also The Guardian, for example, The Guardian were the first that reported on all this Cambridge Analytica scandal, right? So I think that we need to, spot where it happens. So it is, I think, for example, the tool I use the most is Twitter, right? So Twitter is a very powerful tool if you follow the right people and if you follow the right new agencies or things, you will know when something major is happening, right? So something very bad or something, you will know because you're following the right people that know other people, right? So I think Twitter will be a great tool to inform ourselves about deep fakes, but also just, there's people that always has the first breaking of the news, right? So just watch after those news sources, because as I said, there is no tool right now today to say about deepfakes with very, very, very high accuracy. So we need to depend on something else unless they build this digital signature thing that I told you about. That I'm not sure if it's ever going to happen, but yes, I think that just look out for Twitter and also follow the news people that have the breaking news on bad things and fake news.
Okay, and one last question in Spanish. ¿Podrías desarrollar más?
Could you develop or elaborate on what would be one simple regional action in order to consider artificial intelligence as part of sustainable development? As I mentioned in my presentation, artificial intelligence has 2 different phases. You have the positive, which is innovation, and then deepfakes. But I'd like you to watch the videos that we have on YouTube, and The summit was focused on healthcare, education, climate change, all of these different areas that are part of the SDGs and that can be sustained or supported with artificial intelligence, for example, education or personalized education. A lot of people leave because they don't understand. Let's see if we use an artificial intelligence system for personalized people, that it's something different. So that could drive people to learn more, and that could actually make our levels of education thrive. It's just one example, but that could help a lot in the different sectors, and that's the focus we should have. We should have these small projects that we're having, but in order to support these SDGs, to continue to move on forward in this topic. Thank you very much. Gracias.
Informative, and I think you've given us a lot of food for thought for the rest of the day and for the working groups tomorrow as well. A big round
Thanks so
of
much.
applause, please. Thank you.
Now we're going for a coffee break, after which we're gonna have panel 3, the role of media on our fight against disinformation. So 15-minute coffee break, and then we'll be back with panel number 3. Thank you very much.